If the Packers need, I'm happy to fill in as a wide receiver. Or fullback. Or Cracker Jack vendor. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast. Podcast where I don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi. And today what we're going to take a look at, and from here on out, just about every Monday through Friday, we're gonna be doing 5 episodes a week. It looks like from here on out, unless something crazy happens. And obviously, we'll be covering the preseason game against the Texans this week. Next week, I won't be able to cover the preseason game. I will be away, but I'll be recording videos this week to release next week, so we will be on top of things. And so today, what I wanted to take a look at is one of the biggest competitions going on currently in training camp, as the Packers obviously started practicing their joint practice with the Texans today, and it is heating up as we get closer and closer to football, and that is the wide receiver competition. And we have a number of receivers trying desperately to make the team, and so we're going to answer the questions: which receivers do we think are actually going to make the cut? So let's jump into this. Now, before we jump into obviously what's going on currently right now with the players that we have, I wanted to go back and take a look on how many guys we kept on the roster for the past 2 seasons, because that would help indicate, obviously, what was going to happen this year, at least number-wise, how many people we're going to keep on it. So, for example, in 2017, the Green Bay Packers had 7 wide receivers on their 53-man roster and 3 wide receivers on their practice squad. In 2018, we had kept, again, 7 wide receivers. We had 2 on IR, which was Jomon Moore and Trevor Davis, and we also had 1 on the practice squad, which was T.O. Redding. So, when looking at this year, I doubt there's going to be a dramatic change from that number. I would assume that they are going to keep 7 wide receivers on the 53, and I also think that there will be at least 2 receivers also on the practice squad as well. So let's talk about those guys and who are definitely going to make the team, and obviously who are on the borderline and seeing if on the edges if they can sneak on in. So obviously, to start with, you have our number 1 wide receiver, Davante Adams. No real explanation here. The guy is a monster. He is obviously Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. He is also the most reliable after having an explosive season last year, and he's just been on the rise for a couple seasons now. So Davante Adams is obviously our number 1 guy. The second guy is going to be Geronimo Allison. Geronimo Allison was on his way of having a great year last year, at least in the beginning. Targeted over 30 times, had 20 receptions, had 3 touchdowns, and then he got injured and put on IR. And so I think a full season with Geronimo Allison, he's kind of a shoo-in for that number 2. I know a lot of people are talking about MVS, but I think that Geronimo Allison, especially if you can snatch him up in fantasy leagues later in the draft, I think he's going to be an absolute steal, because I think this guy is obviously already has a rapport with Rodgers for being on the team for a number of seasons, but Geronimo Allison definitely going to be making the team. Number 3, a guy who's been having a pretty damn good camp, and that is MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. MVS is, again, going to probably take over for the Randall Cobb route and going into that slot position. The guy can play all over the field, was having a very promising season last year, at least in the beginning of the season, and then started dropping off near the end. Another year with rapport with Aaron Rodgers, I think will do him well, and he should put up some pretty good numbers. And with MVS, obviously, because the Packers drafted like every single wide receiver in the draft last year, you're going to see a lot of the same guys here, even though some of them might not deserve to just be there. They're more there for just the potential that they bring to the Packers team. Now, number 4, I'm going to go with Equanimeous St. Brown. Of course, he, again, showed his flashes. He's been having a pretty good camp. I think that EQ is going to hopefully make an impact this year and be able to step up a bit, because out of last year, obviously, we drafted him pretty late, but I think that he has, out of all the guys that we drafted last year, besides MVS, I think he has the most potential in that his routes are pretty damn sharp. He has good catching ability, and so I think that EQ is definitely going to fill in that number 4 spot. Number 5, and I don't care what none of y'all say, I'm talking about touchdown Jesus, Jake Coomer. Yes, sir / madam. Coomer, I think, obviously last year made lots and lots of waves, and he became an immediate fan favorite. He played many years with the Bengals, playing with guys like with A.J. Green. Came on the team last year. The hype train left the station, and I think the best thing is that Rodgers is constantly going out of his way to praise him. He's been having a good camp. He had a good family night. Coomer, I think, is a guy, because we're in this weird section where anyone who has a rapport with Aaron Rodgers, that's a commodity, because so many people have left the team, right? We don't have Nelson anymore, even though he just retired. Love you, Jordy. Always be a Packer. Then you don't have Randall Cobb anymore, who went to the disgusting Cowboys. So now we need those people that have that kind of relationship, and obviously we're bringing up new talent, all the guys that we drafted last year. But I think Coomer, who has caught Rodgers' eye last year, is continuing to do well, and I would be shocked at this point, unless he has a tremendous drop-off if he doesn't make the 53-man roster. Then moving on to number 6, I'm going to go with Jomon Moore. And here's... Jomon Moore, God. Okay, so Jomon Moore, real quick, earned a reputation last year of dropping the ball. And he's been doing okay with camp. Nothing too crazy, but he's been making some good catches. And I think the reason he makes the team is, 1, we drafted him pretty early in the 4th round, but 2, he has that potential, right? And so, we got a guy like when we drafted Rashawn Gary, who, by the way, looks to be blowing it up in camp. I think that we are holding on to him because we want him to at least give him another year in a Matt LaFleur offense. It's obviously a different type of offense that everyone's learning, but give him that opportunity to be like, hey, this is why you drafted me so early above all of these other receivers. So I feel like we're going to hold on to him for one more year. I know some of you will not particularly be happy about that, especially if some more competition emerges in camp, but I kind of agree with it. Hold on for another year, and if he has a disastrous season, then you just let him go. And then finally, the number 7 spot, a guy who has been impressing in camp, a guy who has been on the cusp now for a couple years, but is basically our only return specialist and has been running some pretty damn good routes and making some pretty damn good catches. That is Trevor Davis. Trevor Davis has been impressing in camp. He's been having an absolutely splendid camp. Splendid, I don't use that word enough. But every single time I'm looking at the breakdown of what happened in camp, Trevor Davis's name is always there. He was great in family night, and so obviously he brings that to the table, but even if he's not the most talented wide receiver, he's a special teams guy. We don't have Randall Cobb anymore. It depends on who we're going to put back there. I think today he caught 5 out of 6 punts. And so I think you can't keep guys back there like Tramon Williams, while Jair Alexander is super speedy. He is so valuable. You can't keep him back there. So I feel like Trevor Davis fits that role, and he's just really good on special teams, not only just as a returner, but also in coverage as well. And so that leads us with a couple of other guys who are gonna just miss the deadline, in my opinion. So for example, we have Darius Shepard, who, in looking at every single breakdown of the camp, has made some pretty good catches, but I don't think he's going to do enough to make the team and or the practice squad. You have T.O. Redding, who has... So, for example, T.O. Redding, on July 25th, he's caught a TD. He's showing off his speed. I think he could make... He's a good shoo-in for the practice squad. Obviously, we had him on the practice squad last year. I don't know if he lasts on there, but... being paid $7,500 a week isn't too bad, but another team might snatch him up, but I could see him sneaking onto the practice squad and us holding on to him. You have Alan Lazard, who we had last year fill into a role, but he only had 1 reception in the very last week of the season for 7 yards. I haven't seen his name pop up a whole lot. Obviously, there's a whole lot of offseason left. There's a whole lot of camp left. And so I think that, he could potentially fill in that role and maybe get the practice squad, but I'm not seeing it as of right now. And a guy who is making some waves, so back on July 25th, Jewel Davis, he had 2 diving catches, and today he had a great catch. So every now and then I see him making some plays. Again, it's super duper early, but I could see him potentially sneak on the team on a practice squad, and potentially, we're keeping 7 wide receivers most likely on the 53-man roster. If one of those guys get hurt, they can always fill in the need. You also have Malik Taylor, who obviously is a long shot to say the very least, but I haven't seen enough out of camp to kind of push me in one way or the other, so I don't, to make any waves. So I don't think that he's going to be making the team on either one. But again, there's a lot of time left. I know we're doing this super duper earlier, but this is one of the questions I constantly get on which wide receivers are actually going to make the team. So again, just to recap, Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, Scantling, Coomer, Equanimeous St. Brown, Trevor Davis, Jomon Moore, and then I think you'll have guys like Jawill Davis and T.O. Redding have a good shot at making the practice squad. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Obviously, as we get a little bit further into and closer to the first game of the season before the 53-man rosters are finalized, I'll come out with predictions for my own 53-man roster. But let me know what you think. You can always send me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all the social media you see down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the members over at Patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Check that out for some cool rewards and to support me. Also, both fantasy leagues are officially full. A big thank you to that. And so that will be a lot of fun this year. You can always find a podcast at SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, and the iTunes. And we'll be here for the next few weeks, Monday through Friday. But thank you so much for watching. I am Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.